The new year brings new health goals and wealth goals. Protecting your identity is an important step. Your info is in endless places that could expose you to identity theft, leading to lost funds. LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Resolve to make identity health and wealth part of your New Year's goals with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hello, family. I'm Janaya Future Khan, and this is Dark Woke. Just before we hit it, I want to say thank you to all the listeners out there, and a special shout out to the supporters who make this show possible. It truly means the world to me. If you'd like to become a member, our Patreon is linked in the episode right up below. Family, I can't believe I have to start an episode of Dark Woke by saying that I watched a video where ICE agents in Minneapolis executed an American woman in cold blood, in broad daylight, in a neighborhood, right? Almost blindly shooting, right? With absolutely no concern or care for the life of and the safety of American citizens, for children or anybody who could have been living in that neighborhood. And this administration's response to that, right? This entire administration has said constantly over and over again, it sold the American people on the idea that they represented the American people, but they don't, right? They represent themselves. They represent their own interests. And the blatant way that they disregard the life of Renee Nicole Good, and we will be talking about her. She's 37 years old, a legal observer and a mother. Right? That's not the definition. This is not the explanation that you're going to get in mainstream media, right? That you're going to get from Fox News, that you're going to get from members of the Trump administration, from JD Vance, right? Who says, well, she should have known better. It's a tragedy, but it's by her own hand, right? And that is exactly the thing that they will tell us again and again. And this is what we must understand. Right? The people who run this country, the government that runs this country doesn't give a damn about the people in it. That's what we have to reckon with now. We are entering a movement era, and we have to understand the significance of what that means. I'm going to explain the significance of Minneapolis. I'm going to explain what happened earlier today. I'm going to explain why ICE represents one of our biggest threats, points of intervention that we could have made and can still make, right? And the responses by government officials on our side, including from, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, and Governor Tim Walz, right? We're also going to just cover, because it's so important to remember that we're always fighting. Even when you don't know it, even when I don't know it, even when you can't see it, I know that we're always fighting. Immediately after these awful situations happen, immediately, right? Where a woman was murdered in cold blood, there were people out on the streets all over the United States. But yeah, I'm pretty gutted. And so let me tell you what happened. ICE has an excessive presence in Minneapolis. We'll talk about that in a second, right? But ICE has an excessive presence in Minneapolis. Part of the reason for that is that the Trump administration is targeting what they see as liberal strongholds, right? Minneapolis, and we talked about this a little bit in the last episode with the whole daycare thing, which is connected to this, right? It's directly connected to this. So you have a deep presence of ICE in Minneapolis. It's considered this liberal stronghold, right? Trump hates Ilhan Omar, hates Tim Walz, right? Hates Jacob Frey, hates everybody there. They want to break us apart. They want to fracture us, right? They want to ensure that there's no opposition, right? That's ultimately what this is. And again, right? Again, I want to remind us, whether or not you're, a fighter, whether or not you're a legal observer, whether or not you're an artist, whether or not you're a scientist, a painter, an engineer, a thinker, a human being. It doesn't, if you are an obstacle in a moment, even if it's for a fraction of a second, even if it's an imagined obstacle, you can be eliminated. You can be executed by a masked vigilante wearing an ICE badge, something that was just fucking thrown together and made up in 2018. Right? Murder an American woman in cold blood, and then have the president and the vice president of this country justify that murder. This is Donald Trump's response, right? Homeland Security definitely put in all caps, stand with ICE, right? I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is Trump on Truth Out. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer. All of that is unilaterally false. There is the video, which is off. It's hideous. What the video captures more than anything is how easy it would have been to simply not fucking kill anyone. It was a weak, panicked loser who has absolutely zero training and zero right to be trying to govern or control anyone. Who's felt, insulted in a moment, right? I'm going to go on, but I'm going to tell you exactly how this happened, right? I just want you to hear it from Trump first. He says she ran over the ICE officer. They barely made contact, right? Who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, it's hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. This is the officer, right? The officer, the agent. I've been trying to dance around saying this. He shot her in the face. Her partner was sitting in the passenger seat, Renee's partner, and a dog on the car. Renee has a young child whose father, I'm told, died in 2023. So his immediate biological family are gone. But that's not the story you're going to get from the Trump administration, because it's not convenient. I just wish to call this the United States of Israel, because we have a video that clearly demonstrates, right? ICE agents getting out of a car, walking up to the van that she was in, right? With her partner and dog. Tells her, get out of the fucking car. Just like that. Just like that. And goes to open the door. She says no. And remember, this is a person who's going to know their rights. I want us to be really clear, right? ICE, whose purpose, right? It's alleged, right? Purpose. And again, they made this shit up in 2018. I'm going to constantly remind us of this, because if something is made, it can be unmade like that if we shore up enough power and belief. But mostly it's to demonstrate how stupid all of this is, how completely avoidable all of this is. I just can't get over the fact that she's gone. For no reason at all. He tells her to get out of the fucking car. She says, no, and then she actually backs up, right? Like pulls the car out and creates distance and space between the two ICE agents that had accosted her in the vehicle, threatening her at that point. And then she turns the vehicle away. And all of this is on video. Right? She turns the vehicle away. One doesn't move. It actually barely grazed him. He said, I'm surprised. Let me ask you something. He said, I'm surprised he survived that. While the other ICE agents, after seeing this guy just shoot wildly into this van, you watch these cowards, these fucking losers walk away. Just like, oh no, we don't want anything to do with that. And the ICE agent that was apparently so injured that Trump himself is shocked that he's alive, just sauntered over to the vehicle where Renee, 37-year-old mother, legal observer described by the Minneapolis community as just a compassionate, caring person, where she was already gone because he shot her in the face And what I want to say before we get into the nitty gritty is this: upon discovering that this had happened, right? I saw the video, and then my job is to verify the facts and go to trusted sites, etc. And that's what I did. In doing so, though, I also came across some very prominent lefty type streamers, commentators, pundits, on alternative media, right? Our alternative media. And, they were just like tweets, posts regarding this video where a woman is executed by an ICE agent illegally. And again, what is ICE's jurisdiction here? Their job, ostensibly, is to be around immigration. Why are you trying to control American citizens? Why should anyone trust you? Why should Americans trust you? That they're not within your purview. But here's the thing. So when I watched, and observed, and I was reading, and because there's something inside is tight, I was gutted, and I think it's too because I'm working through stuff, obviously grief with my mom passing, and I'm so acutely aware of how fragile life is, and to know that somebody was in the car too, and had to witness that, to know that a life was snuffed out, and then to see, right? And again, this is not me condemning us. It's a reminder to step back into our practice as a leftist collective, right? There's a lot of rhetoric that I saw. There was a lot of, this is exactly what we were saying, the Gestapo, the ICE Gestapo, and the Trump authoritarian regime. I didn't see anything about Renee. I couldn't find her name anywhere. I couldn't find her picture. Eventually, of course, these things came out, but it was mainstream media that saw to that, right? And that's okay. I looked more, and there was more rhetoric. I want to. We have been trained and conditioned to rhetoric, and this is the thing, okay? I need us to understand that Renee is not a point to be made, and none of us are. I want to be really clear about this, right? Not a point to be made, not proof that ICE is a danger and a threat, not proof that Donald Trump and the entire Trump administration are a bunch of authoritarian fascists. That's not what her life means. That's not what her death meant. Renee is our hero. Do you understand? She's not a footnote as proof that the things that we've been screaming or saying or, protesting about, that's not what a person's life should be reduced to. This is a person who's believed in ideals and our ideals and was out on the streets for us. I don't give a shit about holding this authoritarian regime accountable. You can't hold fascism accountable. We can hold each other accountable. Fascism is accountable to nothing. It believes in nothing. It just feeds. It's an empty, hollow mouth, and a soulless one at that. This is just plain, naked evil. And I'm not one to use those types of words, but I want to be really clear because we have not done a great job of propagating our heroes and our leaders and protecting our folks. And my question is this, and it's not a condemnation on any of us. It is a question because it's one that I'm sitting with myself. If more of us had been out there, would she be alive? Right? And again, it is not to say this is our fault, but it's to say this is as high as the stakes can't get higher. Yeah? The stakes can't get higher. They are now killing white women in broad daylight, in cold blood, in the exact same way that they kill black people in this country. But we stopped caring about police brutality, right? I can tell you about the 2,400 people have been murdered by police this year. Well, there's a police mapping website that's really useful. You can find it easily on Twitter. Just put in police mapping website. But That's neither here nor there. I want to be really clear, though, about this. Our lives and how we value each other, they're not some sort of point to be made. It's the only thing that matters. The only true justice is life and quality of life. I'm so disgusted and disheartened that this is the country that we live in right now. And I'm aware that even in criticizing this country, that I'm on the chopping block, and I'm on the chopping block already for a number of reasons, right? Largely coincidental. It's not because I'm adorable. I've been having such a hard time making sense of this because you can't. You can't make sense of this. But what we cannot do, what we can never do, is allow ourselves to be moved into footnotes. Renee is our champion. And that's what I need us to know. Renee Nicole Good is a fucking martyr. She was out there for us, defending our beliefs, our ideals, our vision of the world. And that is what makes us dangerous. It's our ability to imagine a world differently and then make it real. Hell, even the free speech they love to yap about, those protections, as you know, were because of us. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Woodrow Wilson was like, oh, I don't want that stuff over here, and made any anti-war sentiment illegal. And then the Sedition Act got expanded out. Now, you also couldn't criticize the government. Before you know it, 2,000 people are in prison. But they're not interested in prison now. They just execute. And now we have proof that they have license to kill. That ICE in America, under the Trump administration, has license to kill. This was not about migrants, and it never was. It's not about immigration and the manufactured crisis here. This is about money, and it's only ever been about money. Why I say this is evil, right? Because let me make it plain as day. What's happening in Venezuela, right? What's happening in the Middle East, in Palestine. It's an enrichment program for the already grotesquely rich. That's it. And they are absolutely willing to destroy lives, eliminate lives, lineages, dreams, people, families, just to get richer. That's it. Renee is collateral. And so we have to make sure that they don't forget her name. In the way that I will never forget Philando Castile or George Floyd. Now we get to Minneapolis, right? I need us to understand something. This is significant. I said I came with you with indications. I told you it would take this long. Movements happen in two ways, and it's two ways simultaneously, right? But one is organic and spontaneous, and the other is curated. A small group of people, right? And it's usually a couple of groups, right? Sometimes working together, sometimes not, because we all are doers on some level, and we know what needs to be done. The best of us, right? The actual left, which we've never really met yet. We haven't actually met the left. I don't know. I've not seen a consolidated left in America. I haven't really seen a leftist movement in America since I've been here. And that's changing. And not everybody's coming with us. Right? But I want to locate us in the significance of Minneapolis. I had mentioned, right? I had mentioned that there's an expanded ICE presence in Minneapolis. A big reason for that was that whole Somali daycare crisis, right? That whole corruption thing. That was used for justification, right? And as you know, my opinions on that. Yeah. Scammers, for sure. I get more spam calls in America than I do from people who actually fucking know me. This is a country built on scams and grifts. That's what capitalism creates. When you have so few that has that much, that they've literally stolen, right? Through loopholes and manipulations, foreign policies, and corporations, all just shadow groups and shadow entities, right? Backdoor dealings. They get rich, but nobody else does, right? That corruption is as American as apple pie. And it was some random loser, right-wing white kid who was running around, right? And who had essentially driven up this racist right-wing mob online that reached its way up to the Trump administration. And then suddenly it was Somali. And again, you know, I grew up in Toronto, and in my neighborhood, there were the population, it was very black. We had our poor white folks. It's very black, but it was made up mainly of two populations of people. It was Jamaicans, right? My family fell into, and Somalis. And I saw Somali people. The treatment is different. It's there's an added layer of xenophobia. There's an added layer of Islamophobia that combines with anti-black racism. Jamaicans went into Canada as indentured, like laborers, the whole jobs nobody wanted to do thing, elder care, etc. Right, and you can still see that, being the thing, right? Somali people were brought in as refugees, and so there's this added stigma, right? It's awful, but the way that anti-black racism works is, it's things just replicate themselves. So much of what I know to be true over there is how things are perceived over here. But isn't it staggering, though? Isn't it staggering to think that some random piece of shit kid incited enough online hate just because he could use the vehicle of racism that would lead the largest funded federal agency in the country, ICE, to come in en masse, that would eventually lead to the murder of a 37-year-old American woman? That's why what we do and how we do it, and what we say and how we fight matters. Because I don't know who was paying attention to that the way that we ought to have been. And I'm not saying that we can get everything, and I'm not saying that's the fight, but I'm saying, where are we? I watched that happen, right? And I'm in this, by the way. This is our time. The questions that I'm asking are not indictments, and they're not even challenges. They're invitations, because we know how dangerous we are, but we have to do things differently this time, right? I want to ask you this. If we had done our due diligence when Philando Castile was murdered, and I went out to Minneapolis for those protests because I was supporting, I was the international ambassador at the time. So I'm going all over the place, all over the world and all over state to state. Every time, everywhere there's a protest, a crisis, I'm there. So I was out there when we took over the city hall, and marched to the police headquarters, and in the cold and I was there when there was the tent. We were living in tents outside for Jamar Clark, right, who was before Philando Castile. And then go back to George Floyd, 2020, right? And what happened in all of those times, right? What happened? Black folks, right? lefties, women, trans folk. We were walking around, but there were so few of us. And that changed in 2020, didn't it? It changed in 2020. We had the pandemic. We had the pandemic in 2020. We had the pandemic in 2020. The entire world watched a police officer slowly, unnecessarily, evilly squeeze the oxygen out of George Floyd's body until he was no longer alive. And in watching that, people had to confront that there was something really awful that existed in this country. And for all that a lot of people were frustrated, it's like, oh, you should have known. Welcome, huh? So I'm going to tell you what happened. Where we had this, there was suddenly a new Black Lives Matter that I didn't see coming. I'm pretty good at anticipating these things, but I couldn't anticipate the pandemic. Oh, I definitely couldn't, because I would have stayed in my job. And do you want to know what happened, right? The people, the masses, it was a breathtaking thing, right? Suddenly, because Black Lives Matter we were hated. We didn't mind. Oh, but we were despised by everyone. We were despised by everyone. And, the movement had done its thing, and these things are not supposed to last forever. You're supposed to break apart and infiltrate these other spaces and take the ideas. But movements are beautiful, magnificent pressure cooker things, right? You can only learn certain things from being in those situations. So when all of these people suddenly, right? Because we're talking about Black Lives Matter organizers losing housing, losing jobs, right? We were fucking pariahs. Oprah was talking shit on us. The Obamas were talking shit on us, right? Black men didn't want anything to do with a movement led by women, and the old guard were just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. They didn't like the way we dressed. They didn't like all the women. They didn't like all the queers. They didn't like all the trans folks. They didn't like how they talked. They didn't like how they dressed. We were honestly on our own in so many ways. And an amazing amount of work was done. But why I'm bringing this up is this, right? So when everybody came out, it was a wonderful thing. All of a sudden, and this was the first time I was like, oh, this is interesting. There's a white Black Lives Matter movement. I was like, this is kind of cool. I didn't see that one coming, and because most of the leadership had moved on. But I was really lucky to play a part here in Los Angeles, and in a larger, cultural way. And so when we said Black Lives Matter, eventually folks were like, Black Lives Matter, right? And we said, stop killing Black people. Eventually folks said, stop killing Black people, right? And we said, we've got to end police brutality. And they said, yes, because that's who is killing us, right? Because racism is real. And we know that racism is real. We said that racism is real. And it was like, yes, racism is real. And we have to stop killing Black people. We saw what happened with George Floyd. And then we said, this is how. We've got to take some money that goes to the police and we have to put it back into the community. Right? That's it. Sure, there were a lot of folks, not a lot, there was a few folks in the movement who were like, nah, like, abolish it, right? But that wasn't the majority of folks. We know what change looks like, You can have your goals, but, change looks like a lot of folks, but defund represented a way to challenge the overinflated police budgets. It invited a way to reinvest in communities, to create after-school programs, initiatives. Overwhelmingly across the country, crime is going down. When we said defund the police, everyone said, well, fuck no. Actually, no. You know what? You guys went too far. You guys went too far, right? For me, I get it. For some people, their activation point was George Floyd. But I know, right? Troy Davis, who was innocent, right? Oscar Grant, Sandra Bland, right? I know Jamar Clark. I know Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, and Trayvon Martin, right? Lando Castile. Freddie in Baltimore, right? Freddie Gray. most of which I attended, right? Corinne Gaines, who was murdered by police in front of her 5-year-old son for outstanding parking warrants. And I was so confused, right? I can't say I was surprised, but I was so confused because how is it? The formula is laid out and we understand that. And the solution is right there. And then nope, this is too much. I want to ask us this, right? The reason why we said defund the police, yes, the reinvestment in communities and everything else, is because we understood that if the police state was allowed to expand, right, it would expand in a way that was beyond comprehension. That they were going to run out of enough people to supply the amount of money they need to generate. When you have more money and more money and more money, it's actually a lot harder to make it, right? $6 billion, $60 billion, that doesn't move the needle. We're talking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We're moving into trillions now. So how do you get that, right? You got to expand the police state. So we saw the expansion of detention, right? We saw it really under the Trump administration. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but I want to ask you this. If we had done our job then, and if we had followed through, would Renee be dead today? It's not a rebuke. It's, and I don't ask it disrespectfully. I'm sincere. It's what we must do, which is take some accountability for why we're here. This isn't our fault, right? None of what is happening is our fault, but how we show up in it is our choice. And choice is the very thing that they want removed from us because we are dangerous when we have them. And we do. But I'm seeing the full picture here. Because I'm going to tell you this, it always comes down to fucking racism. And I hate that. I'm a nignog. I would love to be white right now. And I don't want to be white on any other time except for when I'm talking about race. But racism drove ICE to Minneapolis. And all it took was some piece of shit online loser who's, honestly, I listened to videos of him. He's actually a fucking idiot. And Renee, who took time out of her day, 37 years old, right around my age. Right? She gets murdered because of that? If we can't actually, finally confront racism across the left, we've already lost. If we can't fight against racism across the left, we've already lost. Well, here's the thing. I'm not worried about that because I believe in us. I haven't lost belief in us. And if I did, even for a second, then I would look at somebody like Renee and I would ask myself, how fucking dare you? Okay. I appreciate that because I appreciate you letting me, yap. I'm grieving my mother. And my inability to be there with her is because, I had to be here. I couldn't go back home because of the Trump administration. We are living in a hellscape of some of the most stupid, most demented, disgusting people in the world. We don't need to do that anymore. So let me make some things really fucking clear, okay? This is where we're going to pick it up a bit. I appreciate you just allowing me to just sort of lay some stuff down because these were some hard questions that I asked. But the thing is, we only need to ask them the one time. That's who we are, okay? So out of all of this, what's come out, right? What do we know? What do we know about this whole increase, right? So the Department of Homeland Security deployed hundreds more immigration agents to Minneapolis because of the viral video from that right-wing YouTuber, right? Around this Somali-run daycare where he alleged that they were receiving federal subsidies without caring for children. The Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families investigated the allegations and said compliance checks at the facilities found children present at all but one that closed in 2022. That's the story. But they made it seem like it was this massive thing. And like I said, yes, it did happen. It didn't happen because they were Somali. It also didn't happen, not even a fraction of the scale. And to think that they're talking about this while your futures are being sold out right in front of you because your president is grifting in your face and you're so interested in the red herring, right? But I want to remind us of a couple of things. And then, I want to remind us that ICE can be abolished. We were talking about that in the same way that we used to talk about American imperialism. We were really good at that. Remember I mentioned the whole foreign policy reality, right? We got, Canada, the UK, and the USA. And you got Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And then on this side over here, sometimes France is an ally, sometimes it's neutral, and sometimes China is an ally for them, and sometimes it's neutral. Well, Venezuelan boats, right, carrying oil headed for Russia was absconded, right, by UK authorities working in alignment with US forces. Are we starting to see it now? Good, right? ICE can be abolished. We were talking about that several years ago in the same way that we were talking about American imperialism. We are being called back to ourselves and called back to our roots, right? ICE was just made up in 2018. They're redundant. Whether or not they should even exist has been an active thing, an active debate since then. It's only really shifted, right? It's only really shifted under the Trump administration. So here's a bit of a refresher, and then we're going to move into these how Minneapolis is showing up for its folks, and that includes with Waltz and Frey, and then we're going to move into the protest. But I want to say to you, right? I want to remind us of the power that ICE has under Trump, because this is our next 3 years, right? Remember that one big beautiful act? Yeah, remember that? It allocates more than $170 billion over 4 years for border and interior enforcement. Of course, we know with the stated goal of deporting 1 million immigrants a year, but we also know that that's not what's happening. And that's not really the point, right? But to be clear, that amount of money is more than the yearly budget for all local and state law enforcement agencies combined across the entire United States. So when we were saying defund the police that murdered George Floyd, right? Because police budgets are bloated, inflated behemoths. Well, no one even has health care or dental coverage, for fuck's sakes, right? You could literally become sick and just die of medical debt. While that's happening, right, ICE is now the most funded law enforcement agency in the country. The bill adds billions of dollars to border enforcement, but the largest percentage, that percentage increase, the largest one goes to increasing, right, the finding and arresting and detaining and deporting immigrants already living in the United States, most of whom have not committed a crime and many of whom have lawful status. That's what they've given their time to, that and murdering American civilians and abducting whoever they feel like, whenever they feel like. They don't ever need to reveal their faces. We're talking about the most well-funded law enforcement agency in the entire country. So why? Oh, it's always about the money, right? I'm sorry, you couldn't squeeze more out of black folks at the scale that you needed it, right? Do you know how much money is in these private detention centers, right? We talked about that extensively, and we can get back into it again. Not a few episodes back, but one of the older ones, and I could re-up it if we need to. Like I'll pull some of the notes, but it pretty much is saying what I am saying now, which is simply that. I mean, there was mismanagement before Trump was even in power. We're talking 2023, where they were just creating these and beds. You want to know why they were putting beds in empty detention centers? So that there was a guarantee that they'd be filled, because somebody's got to get paid. And this, everything that is happening to us under the Trump administration is so that them and their friends can get paid. That's it. While they use our tax dollars to see through their plans. All the while asking us to pretend, right, that what we know to be true is not true simply because they said so. And again, welcome to the United States of fucking Israel. And fuck you, no thanks. We know what we saw. We know what we saw, and we know what we know. I'm going to let my boy, Mayor Jacob Frey, kick it for a second. So Frey and Waltz, I'm going to say just straight up, stellar fucking responses. We are all being called into something higher, something more. And I promise you, our champions are coming. They are here. And some of them are you. We all have a role in this fight. Let me let my boy cook.
And I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, right.
We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
Yeah.
You make sure that further damage, further loss of life and injury is not done. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now. And justice is what we've all got to get.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Well, Kristi Noem, that goblin, right? Miller, Hegseth, Trump, JD Vance, that couch fucking freak. All of them are very clear about where they stand on this. They don't give a fuck that an American citizen was murdered. They don't care. They said, well, you shouldn't have been gotten in the way, right? Not, hey, what other ways, what other means of intervention could have happened here? I mean, we're talking about people who are running around in masks, like masked men with guns who have literally no fucking formal training whatsoever. And not one brain cell in their fucking heads. But let me let my boy Governor Tim Walz let you know where he stands on this. I'm going to tell you right before he's standing on business.
Yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back.
Why don't we hit the clip where he's talking about bringing activating Minneapolis's National Guard to protect the state's citizens from this administration.
And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner.
So here's what I need us to know, right? The fighters are coming. The ones who should, where's that yellow face newt? Hakeem, shut up, Hakeem. Where's our leaders, right? Where are they? But it's going to be us. It's going to come down to us. That much feels very clear to me. But when leaders activate, right? What does it mean to the people in Minneapolis, right? To know that the governor of the state that they live in is like, I got your back. This is not okay. Someone was murdered, executed for no reason whatsoever, for nothing. For nothing. A mother for nothing. Right? Okay. So, what was our response? Well, this is a reminder of who the fuck we are. I'm about to play back to back Corey clips. We have our protests in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have protests in Tucson, Arizona. We got protests in New York City, and we have protests in Minneapolis, where there was a vigil and a march. Why don't we pull up the Milwaukee one? I want you to sit. This is to remind you of who we are and what we become and how we transform when we come together and fight for justice.
We're not going to let ICE corners us into terror, okay? Stop all ICE terror now! We want justice, you say how? We want justice, you say how? ICE out of everywhere now!
We are Mrs. Good, and we will not have it no more. Let's give a round of applause for Renee for standing up for injustice. Let's give a round of applause for standing up. Let's go. Let's go.
This is what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
Show me what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
You guys say this is what community looks like, right? Got it? Show me what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
Just so you know, they don't got enough black people there, but that's okay.
Show me what community looks like.
Show me what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
Show me what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
It
Show
does.
me what community looks like.
This is what community looks like.
Rise up, take a stand.
All right, let's pull this one. And the reason why I brought that up is, if you are a skilled protester, you know the chants. But there's so many people there who didn't. That meant something to me. I thought, these are people who have walked out of their normal, right, lives to step into the the reality that we're living in right now. That takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery. And it's because of people like Renee that we have it. So as we move forward, right, as we move forward, as we continue this fight, and I'm telling you, the fight is about to start. We haven't even begun. I promise you this is over. Like, these niggas got gout. They can't go that far. So stupid. I'm so angry and I'm so pissed off and I'm so outraged and I'm so disgusted. There's a kid that doesn't have a mother for nothing. And this entire administration, all of their lies are naked and plain. And the more that they portray the more that they're going to lose even their most staunch, and I'm not talking about the administration. We already know what corruption looks like. There's a reason why Kristi Noem is careful about what she says. She doesn't want to perjure herself for later. Pay attention to how she talks. She knows the law. That means that there's some acknowledgement. Some of the people know in there that shit's not right. Our time is coming, right? But in the meantime, I want us to remember and uphold Renee Nicole Good as our hero, as a comrade, as a freedom fighter who was willing to challenge ICE so that people who look like me and people who look like you could live a life a little bit better. That's it. And she paid the ultimate price for that with her life. A life that was stolen. So we have to make sure, right, that her commitment, her integrity, her sacrifice means something. Because this administration is going to try to erase her. They're going to pretend that she was just some footnote, just irrelevant. Right? Well, shouldn't have been. No. And we want the fucking name of the agent who did it. I'm going to tell you something. This happened in a state that is consistent with a resurgence of Black action, Black mobilization, and Black radicalism, and nothing in this country happens without that. That is a fact. I almost wish it wasn't true. It's so true. It's coming. And this is all the proof that we need. Remember that movements happen because there are small groups that are curating, right? But it's largely because of the organic and spontaneous actions that happen every day. Because we're enduring this every day and we're forming more connections every day. And that's what matters the most, because that's what I want to leave you with. Critical mass is great, but it's not effective if it's our first and only strategy. And for the record, get out there. It's good. It's spiritually corrective to be able to look into another human being's eyes and know that both of you understand what makes life worth living, what things are worth defending and protecting, why possibility and hope and future and art, why those things give us meaning. But those critical connections are the things that matter more. George Jackson talked about revolution. This is Soledad, brother. Black Panther, right? And this is the last thing I'll say is Black Panther. I'm making a circle here. There's a point up here at the top, and I'm going to draw a circle with my finger, okay? He said, yeah, this is where all the action happens and the mass mobilization. But he makes a circle, he draws a circle outline. He goes, but all of this has to happen first. This is our time for critical connections, and not just connections to these ideas. To Jamar Clark, right? Seeing and understanding the connection between Jamar Clark and Philando Castile, right? And George Floyd, and now Renee. It's not a coincidence. It happens to be the same state, or in Alamares, where there's a huge Somali population. They know who their enemies are, and they're terrified of Black people activating again. Well, you can't really stop that. But we never activate alone. These movements only work because we all work together in them. And the critical connections that we're making right now, with each other, right? And with these concepts, with these patterns. Oh, well, I feel sorry for our enemies. I really do. So, to you, my comrades, my friends, my community, this was an awful fucking day. I watched someone get murdered in cold blood for nothing. And I'm going to make sure that it means something. And I know that you're going to do that with me too. Because I'm going to tell you something, it already did. Let's make sure that Renee Nicole Good is one of those, that she represents, right? The inciting moment where we knew we had to win. I love you all very much. Thank you to Corey for making us look good, sound good. And thank you to you for your patience, for your grace, for your care, and for trusting and believing that we could get to this place together, and for believing in me. It actually means more to me than I could ever say, especially now when I feel more alone than I ever have in certain moments. You know, there's a person missing in my life. So I can't wait for our next episode of Dark Woke. Corey and I are plotting and scheming endlessly, and all those little meetings and little things, they're happening, and you know, we're part of some of them. Our time is coming. We spent a year studying. Now we get to spend a year fighting. So take good care, babies. I love you, family, and I can't wait to talk to you so soon, whether it's online or here next week or somewhere in Substack, because God knows I'm going to be everywhere. I don't have anywhere else to be. This is where I am. This is where I am here, and I am with you, and we're doing this together. All right. So soon. Love you.